Hello there, dear listeners. Welcome to Aurora Audiobooks. The Man and the Lion. There was a time when a man and a lion met on the highway, and for some distance journeyed along together quite agreeably. But when the conversation began to concern which creature was superior, a man or a lion, the dispute waxed warmer and warmer. They were passing a statue which depicted Hercules strangling a lion. "See there," said the man, "that statue proves that I am right. What stronger proof of man's superiority over a lion could you ask?" "That doesn't prove a thing," retorted Lion. "Just let us lions be the sculptors, and every statue will show a lion standing over a man." The lesson of the story: we are but sorry witnesses in our own cause. Fox and Goat. Reynard the fox left his home one evening and set off for town to see what he could steal for his little one's supper. In his hurry, he fell into a well and couldn't get out. He tried scrambling up the side, but it was no use. Then, just when he was giving up hope and beginning to think he would be drowned, he heard footsteps above. Looking up, he saw the hairy face of Goat peering over the edge of the well. "Hello," said Goat. "Who are you down there?" "It's only me, Fox," said Reynard. "What are you doing down there at this time of night?" "I was having a drink," answered Fox. "Is the water good?" asked Goat. "It's been a warm day, and I'm feeling a little thirsty myself." "Why, the water's delicious," answered Fox. "I've never tasted such water in my life. Why don't you come and try it? There's plenty left." Without further talk, Goat jumped into the well. This was just what Fox had been hoping for. Without asking Goat whether he minded, he scrambled up on his back, and with the help of Goat's horns, he was able to lift himself to safety. "Thank you, friend Goat," said Reynard, for he is always polite. "That was most kind of you. Without your help, I might never have got out." Goat looked up at the top of the well and began to call out piteously, "Oh dear me, I didn't see how deep it was. How am I going to get out?" "I have no idea," said Reynard. "That's your affair. Didn't your mother ever tell you to look before you leap?" And with that, Fox turned away and made off towards the town to see what he could steal, leaving poor Goat to get out of the well as best as he might. Moral lesson of the story: look before you leap. The Fighting Cocks and the Eagles. Two young cocks were battling fiercely to see which one of them would be the barnyard champion. At last, the one that was bitten crept into the corner to hide his wounds and his shame. But the conqueror flapped his wings and crowed lustily. Then he flew up to the top of the house, where he continued to flap his wings and crow so that everyone would be sure to know who was victor. Just then, Eagle, sailing by overhead, spied the crowing cock. Swooping down, he seized him in his talons and carried him off for dinner. Meanwhile, the defeated rival came out from his hiding place and took possession of the barnyard over which they had contended. Lesson of the story: pride goeth before a fall. The horse and the stag. A bitter quarrel arose between the horse and the stag in the days when both creatures roamed wild in the forest. Horse came to the hunter to ask him to take his side in the feud. The hunter agreed, but added, "If I am to help you punish the stag, you must let me place this iron bit in your mouth and this saddle upon your back." Horse was agreeable to the man's conditions, and he soon was bridled and saddled. The hunter sprang into the saddle, and together they soon had put the stag to flight. When they returned, Horse said to the hunter, "Now if you will get off my back and remove the bit and the saddle, I won't require your help any longer." "Not so fast, friend Horse," replied the hunter. "I have you under bit and spur, and from now on you shall remain the slave of man." Moral of the story: liberty is too high a price to pay for revenge. Timothy and the Nettles. Timothy was playing in the meadows when he lost his ball. Presently, he saw it lying behind a clump of nettles. He put out his hand to take it, and brushing the nettle aside, he was badly stung. He cried with pain and ran in to tell his mother. "A horrid nettle stung me," cried Timothy. "I hardly touched it, and now look what it's done." He held out his hand, on which the rash was already showing. "It was because you hardly touched it," said his mother, "that it stung you. Next time you meddle with a nettle, grasp it firmly and it won't hurt you. Go and rub your hand with a dock leaf and remember what I've told you." Moral of the story: whatever you do, do it boldly. Eagle and Jackdaw. The jackdaw sat on the branch of a tree, halfway up a steep hill. Below in the valley, a shepherd was minding his flock. On a crag at the very top of the hill perched a great eagle, king of all birds. How noble he looked, with his great wings outstretched, ready to swoop, and his eyes fixed on the ground far below. Then Jackdaw saw Eagle dive down and seized a lamb from the shepherd's flock. He carried it skywards in his mighty talons and was lost to sight behind the hilltop. "What a splendid way of catching your dinner," thought Jackdaw. "Why shouldn't I get mine like that?" So he too swooped down and fell upon an old ram whose wool was long and fleecy. But the ram was far too big for him, and he got his feet caught up in the creature's long fleeces. He was so hopelessly entangled that he could not escape. The shepherd came up and had no difficulty in seizing Jackdaw and keeping him prisoner. He disentangled the bird from the ram's wool and clipped his wings so that he could not fly away. Then the shepherd took Jackdaw home as a pet for his little son. "Thank you, father," said the boy. "But what kind of bird is this?" "It is a jackdaw," said the shepherd. "He is only a jackdaw, but he thought himself an eagle." Moral of the story: pride goes before a fall. Wolf in sheep's clothing. To get his living more easily, Wolf thought of a plan. If I can manage to live along with those sheep, he said to himself, I can run off with one of them when I get a chance. But if I go like this, the shepherd will notice me and set his dogs on me and drive me off. He might even get a gun and shoot me. So he took the skin of a sheep that had died up in the hills and dressed himself carefully in it, making sure to cover up all his own gray hair. Then he slipped in among the sheep and wasn't noticed. At night, he was shut in the pen along with the flock. When all's quiet, he thought with a cunning smile, I'll kill one of these fat sheep and have a better meal than I ever had in my life. But the shepherd, before going home, remembered that he had meant to kill a sheep for his own dinner next day. So he took a sharp knife and went back into the pen. But the sheep that he killed in the dark was not a sheep at all. It was Wolf, dressed up in sheep's clothing. Moral lesson of the story: laziness may be our ruin. Donkey in lion's skin. Finding the skin of a lion that had died, Donkey put it on and wore it as if it were his own. He covered up in dusty gray hair with a lion's tawny hide. What a splendid overcoat, said Donkey to himself. Now I'm just like Lion, king of all animals. So he went prancing about the countryside, frightening all the timid creatures he could find. First he saw Rabbit and galloped up to him, roaring as loudly as he could. Rabbit scuttled away into his burrow. Then Donkey came upon Goat and frightened him in the same way, till Goat ran up a steep hillside as fast as he could run. Donkey felt very pleased with himself and laughed aloud to think how he was playing at being king of the beasts. Why, he thought, I only have to put on lion's skin to be as fierce and terrible as Lion himself. Here comes Fox. Let's see if I can scare him. So as soon as Reynard was near, Donkey crouched as low as he could and tried to look as savage and terrible as Lion. He growled ferociously, but to Reynard it sounded just like ee-aw, ee-aw. So Reynard only laughed and ran right up to Donkey. He lifted the corner of Lion's skin and saw Donkey dusty gray hair. Good day, your majesty, said Reynard slyly. I shouldn't be surprised to see a pair of long ears under that mane of yours. Why, what a donkey you are! To think you could frighten me. Who ever heard a lion bray like that? And he ran off to tell all the other animals what a donkey was, and how silly they had been to be scared of him. Moral lesson of the story: if you play a part you are not fitted for, you're sure to give yourself away. Ant and Grasshopper. All summer, the ant had been working hard, gathering a store of corn for the winter. Grain by grain, she had taken it from the fields and stowed it away in a hole in the bank under a hawthorn bush. One bright, frosty day in winter, Grasshopper saw her. She was dragging out a grain of corn to dry in the sun. The wind was keen, and poor Grasshopper was cold. "Good morning, Aunt," he said. "What a terrible winter it is. I'm half dead with hunger. Please give me just one of your corn grains to eat. I can find nothing, although I've hopped all over the farmyard. There isn't a seed to be found. Spare me a grain, I beg." "Why haven't you saved anything up?" asked Aunt. "I worked hard all through the summer, storing food for the winter. Very glad I am too, for as you say, it's bitterly cold." "I wasn't idle last summer either," said Grasshopper. "And what did you do, pray?" "Why, I spent the time singing," answered Grasshopper. "Every day from dawn till sunset, I jumped about or sat in the sun, chirruping to my heart's content." "Oh, did you? Did you?" replied Aunt. "Well, since you've sung all summer to keep yourself cheerful, you may dance all winter to keep yourself warm. Not a grain will I give you." And she scuttled off into her hole in the bank, while Grasshopper was left cold and hungry. Moral lesson of the story: in good times, prepare for when the bad times come. The Stag at the Pool. Stag went down to a pool to drink. As he lapped the cool water, he noticed his reflection and said to himself, "What magnificent antlers I have! How slender and graceful they are, and how delicately curved and branched. But it's a pity about my skinny legs and small feet. They rather spoil my good looks." At that moment, a hunting horn was heard, and a pack of hounds streamed down the hill towards the pool, followed by 2 or 3 huntsmen on horseback. Instantly Stag stopped drinking and took to his heels. He coursed over the fields until he came to the shelter of a thicket. His legs had carried him beyond the reach of the hounds, but his antlers got caught in the branches of a tree. He only managed to free himself before the hounds came in sight, and once more he ran for his life. When he had thrown off the pursuit, he stood still, panting and breathless. "Ah," said Stag, "I shouldn't have spoken badly of the legs and feet that nature gave me. They saved my life. As for my beautiful antlers, they were almost my undoing." Moral lesson of the story: use is of more importance than ornament. Mice and Weasels. The mice were having a war with the weasels, but weasels are bigger and fiercer and are more than a match for mice. So the mice had a meeting to decide what to do. "Let's choose leaders," one of them said. "We shall never beat the weasels if each of us fights for himself, and there is no one to give orders. Let us have generals to give orders and plan the battle." Immediately, the biggest and the strongest mice pushed themselves forward and said they would be generals. The others agreed, and once more they went out to battle. Now the generals, in order to make themselves look bigger and more important than the other mice, tied horns on their heads. Then everyone would know they were the leaders. When the weasels came, the mice were ready for them. They fought bravely for an hour or more, but many of the mice were killed, and the generals decided they must retreat. So they gave the order, and all the mice scuttled back into their holes, which were too small for the weasels to follow them. But the generals got their tall horns caught and could not get back into the holes fast enough. So they were set on by the weasels and quickly destroyed. After that, no more mice came forward and offered to be leaders. Moral lesson of the story: there is danger in being a leader.